Imprisoned by the Fire Nation, this incarcerated bender from the Southern Water Tribe created an entirely new bending form that would go on to have its usage banned. We'll be talking about this character's incarceration and the mental toll it took on her bending art's beginnings, its roots, and her assimilation into the very nation that imprisoned her. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and bell and we'll get into it. I'm Chris Carr, and today I'm talking to you about Hama, the first Bloodbender from Avatar. Before we dive in, we wanted to let you know that our buddy Nerdstalgic is making his first feature film, but he can't do it without you. He's kickstarting his movie Reset, and you can help him, and a slew of other creators who are involved, make this film a reality. This movie has folks who worked on Star Wars Episode 9, Walking Dead, and Game of Thrones lending their talents. So rally together, Nerdwire community! Nerdstalgic makes some of the best film essay content YouTube has to offer. And if you want to see more work from him and other stellar creators, you gotta show your support. Click that link to donate to the Kickstarter. Okay, on to Hama. We meet Hama in Book 3 in episode The Puppet Master. We kind of get a reverse origin story with her because we meet her in her old age, so let's start at the beginning. Hama was a bender who hailed from the Southern Water Tribe and was actually really good friends with Katara and Sokka's gran-gran. Once the Fire Nation began raiding the tribe, Hama, along with the tribe's other benders, fought against the Fire Nation, even freezing in place the Fire Nation ship we see in the pilot episode of Last Airbender. Despite their efforts, the waterbenders were captured, leaving Hama as the last bender standing. She eventually surrendered and was taken to the Fire Nation. There, she and the other waterbenders were caged separately in climate-controlled cells so water couldn't be pulled from the air. Despite her chains and daily torture, Hama felt a surge of power with each full moon. This led her to realize that her powers would be amplified by the full moon, and that since all living things held water inside their bodies, with the help of this power surge, she could bend that internal water. Hama first began experimenting on manipulating elephant rats, and honed her skills on them for years. Once she mastered the rodents, she set her sight on escaping. Hama bloodbent a guard to open her cage, which allowed her to escape to a nearby Fire Nation village, where she became an innkeeper. Now, if the Fire Nation recognized this ability as a threat, that caging these benders made them even more dangerous, this may be why waterbenders were killed on sight as opposed to captured. This would mean that Hama indirectly led to the death of Katara's mother. There is a great Reddit thread on this notion, started by user JohnZ117, that makes Hama taking Katara on as her pupil all that much more upsetting. The Fire Nation, of course, would not want this new bending power to get out, and they wouldn't want to appear weak against those they'd been oppressing. So it definitely stands to reason that Hama could have sparked this kill order. As we learn in the Avatar extras on this episode, those who practice bloodbending open themselves up to madness, typically going mad with power, and the years of torture at the hands of the Fire Nation definitely took their toll on Hama. She began abducting Fire Nation villagers each full moon, forcing them to hike up a mountain to a cave where she kept them imprisoned, much like she and her fellow tribesmen were, subjecting these Fire Nation citizens to torture. Hama is a prisoner of war, and if we look at the real-world psychology of POWs or of refugees, we can better understand, though certainly not condone, Hama's actions. Typically, victims of torture are diagnosed with PTSD, but victims of torture have such severe symptoms related to their trauma that this isn't even the tip of the iceberg when it comes to diagnosing any and all psychological effects of said torture. According to the British Journal of Pain, torture survivors not only have elevated rates of anxiety and depression, but they also suffer adjustment problems that include, but aren't limited to, outbreaks of rage and extreme violence. The journal goes on to say that, quote, "No diagnostic terminology encapsulates the deep distrust of others which many torture survivors have developed, nor the destruction of all that gave their lives meaning." Hama witnessed unspeakable cruelty and was mercilessly tortured for years on end. It's impossible to quantify that sort of trauma. Left untreated, we can see how Hama believes her brand of justice is fitting, given the abuse she and the other waterbenders suffered. Hama kept bending in secret for decades. When she came across Team Avatar, she confided that she was also a bender from the Southern Water Tribe and offered to teach Katara everything she knew. She showed Katara how to draw water from the air, teaching her that water was in unexpected places all around her, like in this field of fire lilies. While amazed by this feat, Katara was also upset that this process meant killing the flowers. Hama waved away these concerns by noting that a waterbender in the Fire Nation needed to do whatever it took to survive. This was simply a warm-up for Hama revealing her bloodbending powers to Katara. Under the full moon, she fully disclosed this ability to Katara, and upon hearing this technique, Katara was mortified by the notion of controlling someone against their will, and refused to engage in such a practice. Given everything she's gone through, Hama saw no problem with bloodbending whatsoever, especially when used against the Fire Nation. This was a nation, after all, that wanted to wipe out their shared culture. They had murdered waterbenders. The two women duel, and Katara proves to be a stronger bender. In fact, in the extras of this episode, we learn that it is a bona fide fact that Katara is stronger than her. Katara implemented the other techniques Hama taught her, pulling from the air, the local flora, but once Hama began bloodbending Aang and Sokka, Katara bloodbent Hama in order to subdue her. Hama's mountain prison was discovered, and the townspeople vowed to imprison her for the rest of her life. But Hama was pleased. Katara, despite saying she wouldn't, still mastered bloodbending. And her technique was passed on, her legacy still intact. Bloodbending had been taught to another Southern Water Tribe girl. The bloodbending form Hama develops is based off of Shaolin Kung Fu's Chin Na techniques. In Mandarin, Chin translates roughly to seize or to catch, while Na means to hold or control. So Chin Na refers to specialized fighting styles where one holds and grips their opponent to disable further action. However, unlike bloodbending, this technique is meant to disable them without hurting them unnecessarily. Chin Na is intended to be a compassionate way of fighting, designed to entrap or lock an opponent's limbs. According to Dr. Yang Jwing-Ming, in his book Comprehensive Applications of Shaolin Chin Na, generally, dividing the muscle tendon, misplacing the bone, and some techniques of sealing the breath are relatively easy to learn, and the theory behind them is easy to understand. They usually require only muscular strength and practice to make the control effective. When these same techniques are used to break bones or injure joints or tendons, you usually need to use Jin, martial power. Sealing the vein/artery and pressing the cavities requires detailed knowledge of the location, depth, and timing of the cavities, development of Yi, mind, Qi, internal energy, and Jin, martial power, and special hand forms and techniques. This usually requires formal instruction by a qualified master, not only because the knowledge is deep, but also because most of the techniques are learned from sensing and feeling. Many of the techniques can easily cause death, and for this reason, a master will normally only pass this knowledge down to students who are loyal and trustworthy. Perhaps the closest tie to bloodbending, aside from the physical look of the style, is this idea of sealing veins and arteries, and that an incredibly skilled master must implement this technique since it has so many risks involved. Hama, though, certainly intended harm on her bloodbending victims. This also ties into the idea of Hama selecting a pupil. Yes, Katara came by happenstance, but Hama saw this as an ideal opportunity to pass on her knowledge. She was connected to this girl. She recognized the great power she possessed. And whether Katara wanted to or not, she did learn this technique. She implements bloodbending when she and Zuko seek out the Southern Raider who killed her mother. Hama chose someone she believed could handle the knowledge. How it got to Yukon, though, I'm still not sure on. I'm a little fuzzy. If you guys know, please post in the comments. Okay, now here's the biggest question I see when it comes to Hama. Why stay in the Fire Nation at all, then? You got tortured there, girl. Why would you want to stay? Well, the most obvious reason is that she wanted to seek out Fire Nation people to harm the way she was harmed. She was also an escaped prisoner. She had no money. She was unsure of what happened to her friends and family. What, she was just going to hop on a boat back to the isolated Southern Water Tribe? The land that the Fire Nation had been raiding for decades? Surely not. In my opinion, Hama had no choice but to try and blend in, which her non-traditional looks helped. Those of the Water Tribe typically have darker skin and blue eyes. Hama was fairly fair-skinned, with gray eyes. This would make it easier for her to assimilate into the Fire Nation. She could quote-unquote pass as one of them. Truly though, I believe Hama's thirst for vengeance is what kept her in the Fire Nation. After being caged like an animal, she continued to live among the people that held her captive, biding her time, waiting for each full moon to show them the Fire Nation hospitality she'd become accustomed to. Now, of course, these are just my thoughts when it comes to Hama. What I want to know, guys, is what do you think of her? Did I miss anything important? Hit me with your hot takes in the comments below. As always, guys, you are in charge. Let us know in the comments what kind of videos you want to see next from us. Head on over to Kickstarter and make sure you are supporting Nerdstalgic in his directorial debut. It is going to be amazing. We're so excited for him, and we know you're going to want to be a part of it. Thank you so much for supporting him, and thank you for watching this video. I'll see you, Space Cowboy. Hit that subscribe button and bell so you can keep the Avatar conversation going with us. And hey, if you liked this video, give it a like. We sure would appreciate it. For more videos, click to the left. Thanks for watching, y'all. See you, Space Cowboy.